don't care if all of you leave.
Now that I'm not in K-pop anymore, I can say this.
How the hell would I know where
Why is Jamie trying to be a star?
Hey, so Jay from Day 6 has become a pretty controversial figure, so today we're going to be looking at what happened, how it happened, why it happened, how he has changed, and what it all means. But for that, let's change the background. Disclaimer that this video is an opinion piece for entertainment, nothing more. Do not send hate to anybody involved. Sources, potential corrections, and warnings are in the description. Thank you if you like, comment, subscribe, and follow me on social media. Let's get into the video. So Day 6 are a K-pop/Korean rock band under the label Studio J, which is a sub-label of JYP Entertainment. They had their debut in 2015 with the song Congratulations, and they actually started out as a 6-member group, but Junghyuk left pretty early on. So they're kind of known to be between genres. Some consider them K-pop, others K-rock. They themselves are pretty open with their definitions and accept different labels for themselves.
Are you a rock and roll group?
Are we?
We do play the genre of rock and roll, so yes, we are a rock and roll group.
Are you K-pop then?
Yes,
I guess we are. We're a little bit of everything.
Mm-hmm.
The members of Day 6 are heavily involved in making their songs. Number one, because they play the instruments, they are a band. And number two, they also participate in writing, especially Young K, but all of the members have participated. So you probably know them as a 5-member group because that's how they promoted for the longest time, and that's how they gained most of their international fan base. So let's talk about Jay for a second. Jay is an American born in Argentina, and he mostly grew up in California. In 2012, he participated in the Korean competition show K-Pop Star, which has brought forth popular musicians such as Ihai, Bang Yi-dam, and Akdong Musician. He then signed with JYP Entertainment. He debuted with Day 6 in 2015, and then he officially left the group on December 31st, 2021. This means that he was with the group for over 6 years. The things we're going to be talking about today mostly take place in a time frame between 1 year before he left and 1 year after he left. He was 1 week short of 23 years old when Day 6 had their debut. He's now 32, meaning he was 29 when he left the group. Now, with all that background knowledge, let's get into some of the good things that he has provided for Day 6. During his time in Day 6, Jay contributed a lot to the group. He has writing credits on 46 songs. There are some albums where he has writing credits on almost every song, and he played the guitar and provided vocals for a lot of the tracks. And I do think that his voice added a lot of flavor to the songs. Jay also played an important part in helping Day 6 gain an international fan base. Korean rock bands usually have more domestic success, and international K-pop fans don't care as much about them. Of course, groups like CNBLUE and FT Island did have international success, but still, it's not really an easy market to break into. However, interestingly enough, him helping Day 6 gain an international fan base is also part of his downfall, which we will get into in a second. Considering he's American, he is a native English speaker, which already connected with a lot of international fans. So from 2016 to 2018, Jay was a host on the show After School Club alongside Kevin Woo and Jamie. Both of these have very interesting careers for themselves, and one of them is going to be relevant in this video. On the show, Jay became known as a funny guy who had a lot of memes that were created in the show, and a lot of people also found him relatable. Many international fans became interested in Day 6 through his hosting After School Club, and I'm one of them. That's how I became on my day. Jay also created a YouTube channel called J6, where he posted behind-the-scenes content and other entertaining videos, which also helped him gain more of an international fan base and really kept English-speaking fans interested.
Honestly, I think all of them are pretty good looking.
There's gotta be one. You pick Young K?
Yeah.
Not one pair.
No.
Not Jay.
No.
Just hold this real quick.
He actively posted on that channel from September 2017 to July 2018, and then he uploaded one more final video in October 2018. He also started Twitch streaming in 2020, which on one hand caused a lot of controversies, as we will be discussing in the next chapter, but it was another way for him to connect with English-speaking audiences. He also became the host of the podcast How Did I Get Here in the same year. In April of 2020, he suffered a panic attack, which ultimately led to him taking a health hiatus. This was during the preparations for the Day 6 album, The Book of Us the Demon, which Day 6 ultimately didn't promote at all as they were all on a break. He did become active with Day 6 again in 2021, but ultimately left the group at the end of the year. All J6 videos have since been privated, and he now uses the channel for his solo music under the name Ij. Another thing I want to bring up is his From Friends project, which he launched to help young adults and teenagers that struggle with mental health issues. Now let's dive into his scandals and other sources of negative attention. Now, my goal is not to bring up the past and harp on it. I will be talking about different situations that occurred, but I'm not going to be talking about it too much in detail. I'm sure that there are already a lot of videos doing that. I want to discuss these different situations in the context of the bigger picture, meaning how did these situations happen and what should we do with that today? So I will first give you an insight into the different scandals in this chapter, and then we will discuss them further in following chapters. Can you tell that it's been a month since I filmed for this video? Anyways, the scandals, the bad stuff. There was an issue of him quote tweeting and criticizing an international My Day because they had tweeted something about how much they hate Korean My Day, and it turned into this big issue because obviously a lot of J fans then sent hate towards that international My Day, who apparently turned out to be a minor. Now, we're not going to get into this entire topic of minors being in online beef, but either way, this was a bad look for Jay. At first, he seemed to not really get why people had a problem with it because that My Day had made a public tweet and he publicly responded to it. But he did end up apologizing and deleting that tweet. This tension between international fans and Korean fans came up a lot, especially during the time where Jay was in day 6 and active online. Because basically a lot of Korean fans were upset with how much English content he produces and how much he catered towards international fans, and that international fans were mad at Korean fans for taking away the one thing they had. So he was kind of being pulled in a lot of different directions there. Another source of drama is that people accuse Jay of basically being a bootlicker for JYP because he defended JYP publicly after fans hated on him.
Listen, it is not JY's fault that the management of whatever you like treats them in a certain way. JYP gets all my respect. Okay? All of it. I don't care if all of you leave after hearing that, but that's my opinion on it. JYP doesn't suck, and you're stupid if you think that.
I think JYP is cool as fuck.
Yeah.
I really idolize him as not only as a musician, but as a human being.
Now, the one scandal that for some reason keeps coming up is the Where Are Stray Kids scandal, where on a Twitch live stream, there was a comment asking him where Stray Kids were.
Where are Stray Kids? How the hell would I know where Stray Kids are? Do I look like I'm at JYP right now? Does this look like the JYP building to you? Like this is just one room? This is like a training room in JYP? Is that what you think? No, please tell me. Let me know if you think this looks like JYP. How the hell would I know where Stray Kids are? Please.
And people thought that that was so disrespectful towards Stray Kids. They basically said, he's dissing Stray Kids, he hates Stray Kids, and all of that stuff. I also heard people say that Jay caused a lot of drama within the group, like among the Day 6 members while he was still in the group. And I personally haven't seen it, but I wasn't super involved as a My Day, so I'm just gonna put it out there, but let you know that I personally didn't see that tension between Jay and the other members. I do want to say, however, that there are a lot of clips out there of them having a good time together, and it does seem like Day 6 don't have any bad feelings towards Jay right now. You may have seen the clip of Young K randomly singing Happy Birthday on Jay's birthday. And just overall, it feels like they mutually respect and like each other.
Jay not equaling Day 6 is temporary. Due to why? Or now, because he talked to boys about it, no worries. Trust the boys.
So I do think that the fans that say that they don't like Jay because Day 6 don't like Jay aren't really making much sense. Another source of controversy was an interview he did after he left Day 6, where he basically said things that implied that idols, including Day 6, were brainwashed, and he was like one of the few ones to no longer be brainwashed, which a lot of people took issue with. They saw it as disrespectful towards the members and other idols, and also had issue with how it played into Asian stereotypes of being like, you know, robot-like.
Yeah, when I first met you, I didn't know. I thought K-pop people were all like manufactured in Korea from like a baby age.
Oh, most of them are.
But you,
yeah, there's very few specific ones that have been brought overseas to be remanufactured and re-brainwashed into the model that you see before you today.
And where are you on that brainwashing process?
I think I've unwashed myself mostly. Yeah.
We'll be done with this list of scandals soon. There was one scandal or issue where he tweeted something about how it's sad that not everybody understands sarcasm, and then somebody else responded with, I'm neurodivergent, to which he responded with, me too, ADHD and anxiety. And people thought that entire situation was odd of him because it just seemed disrespectful to a lot of people. He defended himself, saying that people were just trying to cancel him, but then he later on deleted it, apologized, and said that he now understood what the issue was. The worst thing that he did, according to a lot of people online, and also according to me, is the entire Jamie thot situation. Basically, on a Twitch stream, he was like laughing and giggling and saying that Jamie, the singer, was basically a thot.
Now that I'm not in K-pop anymore, I can say this. Why Jamie trying to be a thot? That's right, I said it, tell her. I said it, tell her.
And people got mad at him, and Jamie got mad at him. She also took to the internet and expressed how mad she was about that. It turned into a big situation, and I could rant about this for so long, but long story short, he also ended up apologizing for that.
It was a shame, yeah. I fucked up, I 100% fucked up. It's not something that you just throw out there and just laugh at. I guess I think I've learned that there's weight in that specific word too. Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. I know y'all disappointed. It's just
All in all, he just had kind of a lot of scandals that weren't that big, but kept bringing up the same issues of him saying things that were deemed offensive by a lot of people and then not getting what is going on and being really defensive about it. But he did end up apologizing most of the time. Before I give you my opinion on these scandals and situations, I want to give him a chance to speak on it. So we're going to look at what he has said since all of this has occurred. What inspired this video was an interview Jay did with Zach Sang, where Zach asked and Jay spoke about his controversial past and his thoughts on day 6 and a lot of the things that occurred. And it is very clear that he has thought about and reflected on all of these things and views them in a different light now than he did about 3 years ago. In general, he has a few positive things to say about being an idol, which is a contrast to how he spoke after he left JYP.
I'm so used to a system where I was kind of given like a syllabus, almost like a bulletin point guide on you can do this, do this, do this, do this, and then you're good. And that's kind of beautiful in a way. I didn't always think this, and I thought it was kind of limiting in a certain way. But I mean, the more I've been solo, the more I'm realizing, man, those days are kind of sweet because like there's less thinking and less brain usage involved.
Now that he has been independent for a while, he can appreciate the structure and the control that he was subjected to as a K-pop idol. He seems to have more understanding for why certain things are so strict, and he appreciates being told what to talk about to a certain extent. And it seems as though he also appreciates the work ethic he gained from working as an idol. I think because he now has some distance from it, he's now able to appreciate some of the things that he previously only perceived as oppressive or negative. He also admits that he had a lot of anger within him during his time in Day 6 and that he unfairly projected that onto other people and the industry. Interestingly enough, he brings up the Stray Kids scandal of all things to illustrate that, basically saying that he should have handled that situation differently and not responded in such an angry way.
And they were asking me where another group from my label was. And then I remember just being like, do I look like the manager? Like, how am I supposed to know? But I could have said that in a way more like, hey, like I'm me, I'm not sure. Because I like their music too. So it's like, and then that spun out into a web of, oh, he hates that group. He hates K-pop. I'm just like, bro, I don't know. I don't know what to say to that. Well, yeah. I mean, I feel bad because I feel like genuinely I could have handled that a lot more maturely.
He said that his When the Rain Stopped Following Me EP contains a lot of his thoughts and emotions surrounding his time in Day 6 and his departure. So I went and looked at some of the lyrics of these songs to get a feel of what he thought. The two songs which stuck out to me, which he also talked about in the interview, were When the Rain Stopped, as well as I Just Want My 20s Back. Both songs deal with very different sides of the situations. And when I talk about them, please keep in mind that these are my interpretations of the lyrics and what I think this all means. I'm not saying that this is like 100% confirmed what he thought. This is what makes sense to me. The song I Just Want My 20s Back deals with how he still feels like he was treated unfairly in certain situations, but is over-seeking redemption for these instances. It is very clear that he doesn't want revenge and he doesn't want anything materialistic. He just wants to be acknowledged. This aligns with what he said in the interview about how it does make him upset when people try to erase him from Day 6's history because he was a huge part of the group. And so it does sting when Day 6 released their album called Forever. And I assume it's the same thing when he gets left out of celebration posts. And it also extends to how the fans talk about him. It's very obvious that he doesn't blame the members for this and he wants the best and he would love to associate with them more, but he's scared of fan reactions. Now the song When the Rain Stops gives insight into his feelings of guilt and being critical of himself as well as self-hate. He sings about his imposter syndrome as a K-pop idol. He's very aware that a lot of K-pop stans don't like him, and honestly the lyrics are pretty rough because they show a depressed, beaten down side of him. And honestly, I think that it crosses the line from self-reflection into self-hate. Lyrics like, maybe I am an animal, maybe everyone is right, having trouble believing that I could be a good guy. And also the line, I'll be sorry till I die, shows that he still holds deep loathing towards himself for everything that happened. This and the other lyrics in the song all point to one thing: there is guilt and regret. Speaking of the interview, honestly, it's kind of a shame that Zach is clearly not in the loop of who Jay is and what people think of him, because he clearly has no idea which scandals Jay is talking about. Like, a lot of the time, he just has no clue what Jay is referencing, and that makes a discussion about it really hard. Because Zach keeps trying to stir the conversation into the direction of, you did nothing wrong, people are beating you down for something you didn't do, while Jay is trying to more go along the lines of, I made mistakes, the reactions were harsh, now I'm trying to deal with it while also apologizing appropriately.
Is the internet gaslighting you into believing something that is clearly untrue or questioning your own character?
No, I wouldn't say gaslighting because I've definitely made a lot of, I think, mistakes while in my career in day 6. I think a lot of that time I was very angry at not anyone but like the label and the entity that was the chain of command that I was in. But because, I don't know, the more that I think about it these days, I'm starting to realize more and more that I projected that anger to people that were in specific situations where I was already angry from something. And I don't think they deserved that. And I was just a little immature.
And I think it would have just been dealt with better if the interviewer knew what Jay was talking about and had done some more research into the person being interviewed. And I have to say, I'm impressed by how Jay handled that interview, because it would have been really easy to go along with what Zach was saying and being like, yeah, no, like everyone was being mean to me for no reason. But he does try to take responsibility for a lot of the things, even though Zach is kind of working against him in that regard.
I think it's really interesting, man. You were in a rock band and you were super young and still growing up. And like those two things are like, dude, they're counteractive to the system.
Yeah, I think the situation too, and the reason that I'm really trying to accept that it is really partially my fault, not even partially, it is my fault, because I wasn't young then.
Because, yeah, Zach is just basically going like, I don't know what happened, but you did nothing wrong, which is kind of off-putting, to be honest. But you know what? This video is not about Zach Sang, it is about Jay, so let's continue talking about him. Jay talked about how he struggled a lot with cultural differences between the US and Korea, that he had some issues adapting to the culture, and that there are some aspects that he understands more now than he did before. For example, the difference between the individual culture of the USA and more of the collective culture in Korea, which a lot of it he perceived as unfair at the time. His problems adjusting to those cultural differences are at the root of a lot of scandals. And because of it, he also had just overall issues with his company. He talks about his J6 channel, which promoted Day 6 internationally, which wasn't something the company wanted him to do. Jay talked about struggling with cultural differences when he was in Day 6 because he moved from the US, which also played part in the anger that he had and bled into the scandals that ended up happening. Honestly, there are a lot of interesting things that he says in this interview, so I recommend you all watch it. He admits that there are some regrets in regards to him leaving Day 6, but ultimately thinks that it was the right decision at the time. So now that we have insight into his current state of mind, where does that leave us? I think that the situations that happen touch on so many different things that it kind of sucks that they're all thrown in together into his big pool of scandals all the time. However, I think the different scandals all have something in common, and that is that pretty much all of them stem from him doing something, people getting mad at him not understanding why people are mad at him, and so now he gets mad at those people, he doubles down, and then he finally apologizes. In most of his situations, I do understand why he acted the way he did. Like, I understand the impulse to say certain things or react a certain way, but I think that he also didn't react correctly most of the time. Like the tweet where he responded to an international My Day. I understand wanting to publicly say something. I understand responding publicly to something that was said publicly. And I understand why it feels unfair that people would criticize him for it. Because if that person didn't want a public response, why post it publicly? Do you want me to say public one more time? However, on the other hand, online personalities need to be aware of the impact that they're having and the influence that they have on their audience. If somebody has 5 followers and you have 5,000 followers, you have power over that other person. Because he has an audience and he has fans, he has power. He can very easily make people attack that other person, whether he wants it or not. There comes a certain degree of fame where as soon as somebody has public beef with you, they will get attacked, they will get threats, and as a creator, even though it feels unfair that you have to bear that responsibility, you have to think about what you post and the impact it could have. Because having that following just makes it really easy for you to be a bully. Regarding his support for JYP, I think that there are bad things Park Jin-young has done, no question about that. But I do understand why Jay has defended him in some situations, because a lot of fans online seem to have a hard time distinguishing between JYP the person and JYP Entertainment the company. Basically, people blame Park Jin-young for things that happen at JYP Entertainment that Park Jin-young has no influence on. When people get mad at Park Jin-young for the way that Stray Kids are promoted, it doesn't make sense, because Park Jin-young is not the person deciding that. He's not even CEO of that company. And so I do understand that Jay called people basically stupid for being mad at JYP for mistreating his idols when the person JYP had nothing to do with it. Based on what Jay has said and also on what other idols have said, I think that Park Jin-young is probably pretty supportive of JYP idols.
he's always like, yo, hit me up whenever you want. I called him at like 3 a.m. one time and I was like, yo, I'm having a hard time. You know what he said to me? And that was when like Zombie was blowing up and like we were doing really good financially and it was good for the company. He was like, yo, you know what? Jay, your happiness is the most important thing to you.
It seems like a lot of idols have a good relationship with him, so I understand being protective to some extent. And I understand that Jay wants to defend JYP from allegations that he mistreats idols when it seems like JYP is one of the few people actually supporting these idols. As you can tell, I understand different sides of the subject and I really understand what Jay is saying, but honestly, overall, doesn't matter. Let's just move on to the next scandal. The entire brainwashed situation, I think that this is probably the best example of him projecting the anger that he held within him from his time in Day 6 on just the industry as a whole and just other people. I think it was at a time where leaving Day 6 and leaving K-pop was pretty fresh on his mind and he had a lot of frustration surrounding that. I think he was dealing with identity issues as being an ex-idol who never really fit in. And this is one of those situations where I just think he chose his words poorly because to an extent I understand what he says. If you are in a high control environment, which the idol industry is, it makes sense to feel like you're brainwashed to some extent. And I, as an outsider, have no right to talk about whether or not these idols are actually brainwashed or not. I also don't think it's really my place to talk about the impact it might have had on Asian stereotypes. I just think that that situation is unfortunate. I think the way he chose his words made it really easy for him to be misunderstood. And I'm just gonna move on from that topic. What I am gonna talk about more is the Stray Kids scandal, the Where are Stray Kids, How Would I Know? And I just wanna say, I don't get it. Like, honestly, he was being snappy in that live stream. I understand that. He could have been more polite. But asking where are Stray Kids, like, that was a stupid question. People that ask where is insert idol in another idol's live stream kind of deserve to be told that that is a stupid thing to say. I think it's rude. I think it shows that you care more about somebody who isn't even there than the person whose live stream you are actively watching. And like, he's right. How would he know? Why would you ask a person who is in a completely different group where the other people, why would you ask that? The fact that this is one of the scandals that he got a lot of hate for, and this is also the scandal that he seems to be apologizing for the most, is kind of beyond me. And I'm saying this as a stay. This entire scandal is so weird to me and really unfortunate, and this is the one scandal where I pretty much think that Jay did nothing wrong, which is not something that I can say about his other situations. I think that he was pretty rude in a lot of his streams. He said things like, oh, you're stupid if you believe that, and stuff like that, which is rude. So I do think that he should have acted differently. Like, I don't know if he realized that he was personally attacking some people sometimes with the things he was saying. And it just overall makes him a lot less likable. I didn't really put other instances of him being rude into this video because I don't think it would add a lot, but this is also kind of important to know for context for all of these things, that just again and again there were these small situations that happened where people just thought he was being mean. The people don't understand sarcasm, I'm neurodivergent situation is a classic case of people assuming they know what kind of bubble the other person is in and just it all blowing out of proportion and it all just being one big misunderstanding of people just not knowing what the fuck the other person is talking about. Because basically he fired shots at people that don't understand sarcasm, and when that person replied with I'm neurodivergent, I understood what they meant because I see stuff about neurodivergence online a lot. And so I know that for neurodivergent people, it can be a reason why they don't understand sarcasm, especially when it comes to autism. So to me, that reply made sense. However, I don't think it made sense to Jay. I think that he had no idea why that person would bring that up in that situation. And he responded with his own neurodivergence, which made sense to him. Because if somebody is accusing him of being offensive towards neurodivergent people, he can say, hey, I'm one of you. However, to the other people watching, him being anxious has nothing to do with sarcasm. His form of neurodivergence isn't necessarily relevant in this context. And it seemed like he was deflecting. I think he felt like he was being unfairly criticized, and other people felt that he was not taking neurodivergence seriously. And after it was explained to him why what was said, it did seem to make more sense to him, and he did end up apologizing. The thing that annoyed me the most about this situation is his tweet about cancel culture, because I hate when people talk about cancel culture like this. I think it's really annoying, and the people usually don't have a good point when they bring that up. So yeah, all in all, I think that situation was, like a lot of the others, a misunderstanding. It was an instance of him not thinking enough before he tweeted something. So yeah, you can do with his apology whatever you will. We will move on. Now, him calling Jamie a thot is something that I was extremely angry about. I thought he was being misogynistic and just overall shitty for no real reason. And him saying afterwards that he didn't know what thot meant, that he thought it meant baddie, makes no sense to me, because why was he giggling? Why was he talking about, oh, Jamie's gonna be so mad about this, if it just means baddie? And also, I think the situation could have been avoided if he hadn't used AAVE that he doesn't understand. The way he reacted afterwards, it does seem like he was affected by the pain he caused. Basically, he seemed very torn up about making Jamie sad, which some might say too little too late. And just like with everything else, you can do with that what you will. But I do think that he had no idea what he was doing in the situation, but he should have been aware of what he was doing. It all ties back to this thing of having a platform and having a big audience and needing to take responsibility, because you can't just be saying anything that comes to mind when you have this many people watching you. And I just hope that this is something that he finally learned and understood. That situation, it still leaves a bad taste in my mouth. I understand why he still gets backlash for it, and I understand why people still hate him for it. I'm not saying that you should hate him for it, but I am saying that this is like the biggest scandal he had that still has the most effects today, because people are still talking about it. However, I think that Jamie situation was the start of him realizing that maybe he was the problem in some of these situations, because before it seemed like he felt like he was unfairly persecuted all the time. And in that case, he could see that he was actually the one being hurtful. And I think that led to a lot of self-reflection. I think he kind of realized that it wasn't just cancel culture and just people wanting to hate that were mad at him all the time, but some of these were very valid reactions to the things that he had said and done. But I do think that he needs to be careful about differentiating between self-reflection and self-hate, because his conclusion shouldn't be, I suck and everyone is right to hate me. His conclusion should be, I need to think about what I am doing and saying, and I need to take responsibility if I have hurt people. And I hope that he can see the different situations as different situations, because the answer isn't he was 100% wrong or 100% right on everything. I just basically think that he should be able to go, okay, this was wrong because of this, that was wrong because of that, but this isn't as bad as this thing. And just kind of, think about each situation on its own rather than just making conclusions about his own self-worth. Now, my thoughts on him, I wouldn't consider myself a fan or a hater. I used to be a fan. Now I don't really have that strong feelings towards him in any sense. There are situations that annoyed me, but honestly, I'm over most of them, as you probably can tell. I just think that I understand him in a lot of ways, but also see it where he went wrong. And I just hope that he can continue to have that personal growth, because that would just benefit everybody. I doubt that I will be keeping up with him, but in a way, I do wish him all the best. So, if you haven't left a comment already, I would love to hear about what your thoughts are on Jay in general, on specific scandals. I would love to hear your opinions. I'm interested to see where you agree and disagree with me, or just overall, I want to hear your thoughts. If you haven't done so already, I would really appreciate it if you liked the video and subscribe to my channel. I want to do more video essays or just talking about K-pop type content, so let me know if you have any ideas which you would like for me to talk about. Do follow me on TikTok and on Instagram. Both of them are in the description, and I hope you have a lovely day. Hopefully I will see you soon. Bye!